Hello. Just sending it out to the chat. Time to bring people in. Okay. So wait for people to get in just a moment. Let's see. We are live. And we are now live. So anyway, this is going to be a kind of quick, a quick-ish review of Paul Fahrenheit's excellent book that he just released called A Country Squire's was it Country Squire's Journal? sorry, but sorry, Country Squire's Notebook. I was so enthralled by it, you kind of forget the title some from time to time. The anyway, so give like a very obvious little warning as any good review goes, a little disclaimer. Paul is my friend, but I did purchase this with my own money. And so this is not a disinterested review. This comes from a particular standpoint. Also, I'm not the best read in the Southern Gothic tradition. So in terms of my criticism of comparison to what he's trying to break with, as mentioned by Dan T.R. Hudson in the foreword, I'm not going to be that hyper skilled, but am a man of letters. I do I do deeply appreciate and love fiction and have studied narrative construction and whatnot. And we do kind of, both I and Paul draw from similar literary roots in that we both revere Shakespeare and Milton and such, and so we have an appreciation for the old ways of speaking. And before we move on from like the consumer, just to wrap up the little brief consumer section, um, you know, note, you may buy the PDF and you may have a little sticker shock and say, oh, well, it's only 64 pages. Well, you're mistaken there. Page count is deceptive. It's probably closer to like 120 or so pages. And very importantly, it's not of one story. It is of 7 stories, which each have condensed amount of works that all interlock together and provide a gestalt of a story that you piece together as you move from story to story that makes it some of the entire tableau of Virginia, of this very imaginative, wonderful reconstruction of Virginia, um, imagined in a more medieval setting. It makes it, oh hey Jacob, uh, makes it more greater than the sum of its parts. And so I would definitely say, from just like if you're just here for the quick like consumer review as opposed to the deeper digging into the meaning and the literary criticism, I would definitely say it is worth the money uh, in terms of entertainment value. It would take me, if I was just sitting to read without having to take notes, it would probably take me like it probably took me like 3 hours to get through it, just without like any taking notes. It took me 4 hours with note taking, and my mind is still crackling, crackling in terms of what lore was invented and inhabits the crevices of the narrative that were not included. Um, so in terms of thoughts on the greater project that's being put forth by Paul in this work, I would definitely say there's an interesting aspect to it in that there are 7 total stories, and there's a meta quality to it because in the 6th story, You know, it's being noted that this is the author, the author of this entire thing, from a conceit standpoint, the country squire that is recording everything. And so it provides a very interesting backdrop as as we uh, as we move forward in terms of writing. Note, let me pull up in particular a couple of lines from down here from Confessions of a Country Squire, the sixth story. There's a seventh story that's interweaved and woven into it very cleverly. That really just it really keeps you nailed to the it keeps you riveted and nailed to the story, trying to figure out as you get these little breadcrumbs of a narrative that you piece together in your mind, or puzzle pieces of a narrative that you puzzle together in your mind. In particular, where he notes about how the stories, where was it? Right, where is it? This is real professional criticism, pulling up on your phone. Uh, ah, come on, here it is. Okay, indeed, this is the second paragraph in the this is the second paragraph from Country Squire, Confessions of a Country Squire. Indeed, it was seeing this change, such as the adoption of the Richmond dialect across every corner of the kingdom, the exchange of the Spotswood from Spotsylvania to Strasbourg, and the endless march of the many stamping out those few holdout hollers who worship the one God, that prompted me to collect these stories. In my time at Commonwealth College, a professor once taught me that we humans write things down when we fear things are being forgotten. I suppose I possess such a fear, which is why I put these stories to paper. So he, this is the same line that Paul mentioned in his space last night for the launch party, and it definitely rings true in here. At the same time, there's something more going on here than just mere memory, because human memories don't work like mere tape recordings. Um, Rather, it's more like holograms that we construct and reconstruct and add flair and flourish each time, that are not false, but they add a different quality than just mere factual record. Rather, it adds a robustness and rigidity that we call typically mythology or myth. And that is what, in essence, this is. This is a developing of the American mythological leaf mold from which great works can spring, and which I really anticipate to see some elaboration on some of these stories. In particular, I would definitely say my favorite was was it the second one? What was it called? It was called. Let me pull it up. The Taps of Old Westmoreland. Um, that one, that one in particular, really resonated with me as a child of the Chesapeake Bay, as it did such a very good job of recreating that kind of strange atmosphere that you get when you tramp around the rivers and live live near the water, and the respect that you end up possessing for it. Um, so I really definitely enjoyed that as well, and also the Bard of Staunton. That one, that one also provides a really awesome like backdrop to be built off of, as well as a very good story that from which we can. It's really kind of a strange effect. I never really had this before in quite a while. I think I've had it a couple of times when I've read some other stories, like probably last time I had something like this was when I read Beowulf. Quite frankly, in terms of sparking the organic imagination like this, which but yeah, there's three big stories that are essentially like these doors into new worlds, and that is the Taps of Old Westmoreland, the Bard of Staunton, and the Dragon of the Skyline. All those three provide these these properly large stories, substantial stories that provide this window into these separate worlds, these that make up Paul's portrait of Virginia that you can step into just immediately. Other ones are more like windows; they're shorter, but at the same time, they still provide a glimpse into what could be. Like the very opening story slash vignette, Old Man Mountain, where it talks about the forming of the finger or the necks of Virginia from an epic battle, or the Confessions of a Country Squire, where it's like this. It's more of a letter than a. It's almost like a well. It's partially a letter, partially a story that's being told to us from the perspective of the author. And likewise with the seventh hidden story, which I will not elaborate on because it's such can't give spoilers to it. It's that good. Um, so yeah, I would. I mean, yeah, I could technically talk about the downsides, but they're so I don't think they would be of interest to you guys because they're little pedantic things where it's like that come down to like really technical inside craft of the craft of writing. Otherwise, there's like nothing really glaring from like a consumer perspective. From the perspective of your non-writer types that just enjoy good literature. So overall, um, I'd say in conclusion, like if I had to give like this is not a, it's really stupid to give a numerical rating, but I would probably give this like maybe like a 9.5 out of 10 in terms of just how much I really enjoyed reading it, just like from a subjective standpoint. Other than like those little like couple of things that I might pick up on where it's just me. It's kind of like it's almost akin to like jumping in a Ferrari and saying, "Oh no, the cup holders are the cup holders aren't perfectly angled for comfort." It's like, yeah, well, horses for courses in that regard. So overall, to kind of sum up this short little stream, that's a kind of like quick review. I promise there will be a longer stream that's actually much more spoilery, quote unquote. Um, hopefully with Paul's blessing in terms of that, because it will be a lot more detailed comparison. Because this actually dovetails surprisingly well with the recent thought I've had, spark I've had about the question of building moral imagination and comparing Tolkien and contrasting him with why am I blanking on his name? H.P. Lovecraft, because they both were fundamentally reacting to similar worlds, but they reacted in very different ways, and both had a negative aspect. One provided a negative moral vision, and the other one a net negative reaction to that's not constructive to modernity. And I think there's a really good and deep analysis one could do with what Paul's doing in this series in a certain respect, in this universe that he's trying to build, or mythology he's trying to build, and that. Though I'd have to talk with Paul more about it. But yeah. Anyway, any questions, guys, for the viewers that are here? One thing I did also like. One thing I also really liked about the about what was it Siegfried. Yeah, it was a ode to Siegfried. One thing I really liked about that. Oh, I'll say one last thing. As if you guys have any more questions, please put them in. Was it what's it called? The Dragon of the Skyline. That in particular set it up for. Oh, I forgot to. So one I find that to be very interesting in what he's setting up there at the very end, because in that, mhm. Don't worry about that, Jacob. I'll answer your questions nonetheless. The is how he sets up essentially the war the war with the Melungelons. I don't know how if you pronounce it like that. There's this interesting historical triracial group in America, that in particular to like the Appalachian area in Virginia. And so I find that to be very interesting. I really want to see Paul expand upon that in the relationship there, as well as the his interactions with the Amerindians in in this mythos. So overall, um, yeah, I would say very excellent series. I think it's a really good 1607 says 1619. But I missed the symbology of that pricing. Uh, very clever, Paul. Very clever. Uh, but yeah, it's overall. Overall excellent. I would say excellent value, especially because it's essentially a promise that he's delivering us, or he's given us of something greater and more by the fact of his gestalt. Excellently constructed, gestalt and suggestion of the lore that is yet to be put to paper and published. Um, so yeah, if you guys buy it, you can also get, if we enough of us buy it, we can also get, hardback or paperback or whatever. And so that would be awesome. Anyway, thank you for thank you everyone, all three of you, Southron Yeoman and Jacob J, and our unknown other viewer, for showing up, and enjoy your Monday night.